Redditors with real-life butterfly effect stories, what happened and what was the series of events and outcomes. My coworker has a big ego and thinks she knows best. We had a patient who received home visits. He had a medical condition that, if observed by a newcomer, might cause alarm, but we were very much informed about it and familiar with it. Instructions were that the condition was normal for him, not a concern in itself. One day the patient's wife and my coworker seemed to have some kind of power struggle, disagreement about his condition and treatment, and the coworker ended up calling an ambulance for his long-term unchanged condition that we were very familiar with. He was taken to hospital and while there caught an infection. This infection impacted his eating and he lost a lot of weight fast. His condition deteriorated over the next few months and he passed away. Honestly, it wasn't unexpected that he might pass, but it seems the specific scenario it ended up happening and stemmed from that unnecessary hospital visit. Nearly every single friend I have in college is because one day in my gen ed health class we had to pick a seat that would become our seat for the semester. When I came in there weren't many seats left. And the people I sat next to ended up becoming my best friends and introduced me to all of my other friends in one way or another. I'm alive because my aunt was born. My grandfather was conscripted into the Romanian army as a medic, and his unit was one of the many acting as a defensive barrier, covering the Nazi supply lines to Stalingrad. She was born, and he was called back to Bucharest from the front. While he was on leave, the Russians launched Operation Uranus, which decimated the Axis forces. He received word that his unit had been completely destroyed. He was never reassigned, and in 1948, my mother was born. I'm also alive because a bunch of Romanian cows got sick. My other grandfather was a pharmacist back when that meant actually making medicines. He was also a Jew. The town he lived in was largely agrarian, and their cow herds came down with some illness that was killing them. He whipped something up that cured them. The townspeople were very grateful to him. So grateful that when the chief of police heard that the Nazis were coming to town to take inventory of who lived there, he came to my grandfather's house with some train tickets for him and his wife. They escaped the Nazis, and never got caught. My father was born at the end of 1945. I guess this is the opposite of the butterfly effect, really. Rather than one small action blowing up into a much more important chain of events, two hugely improbable events are eventually lead to my birth, and obviously, my extended family as well. And now, I run ads on the internet. Grew up speaking Spanish, so in high school my mom made me sign up for French. I didn't really care, but figured whatever, at least it's something new. I was a good kid, bit of a cut-up with absolutely zero direction. In that class one met a girl and we sort of became friends. She got sick that year, cancer. It was horrible. Visited her in the hospital, got close to her family, still am. She passed the following year. French, it turns out, was her favorite subject and her dream had been to study abroad. Her parents asked if we, her friends from that class, could do that for her. The years went on. I worked every summer, tried to save up to study abroad. I noticed the others who had made the promise weren't making moves towards it, so I worked even harder. Finally went for a semester my third year. TBF, I always enjoyed French, but it wasn't a passion. Except that semester something kind of shifted. Came home, finished undergrad, then got into a master's in French. The whole time my friend's mom was excited, feeling like my friend is somehow vicariously living through me. I graduated from my master's and then moved back to France. Been here 3 years now, and May 1st was the 11th anniversary of my friend's death. As I type it out, it's not so outwardly obvious, but the entire time it's been so clear for me that she's been with me on this journey. High school, I didn't get into the AP history class wanted. Changed up my schedule, including a different gym class, without everyone I knew. I was heartbroken. I really wanted to teach, and without an AP class senior year, I was screwed. Made a new friend in gym class, who was wearing a volunteer firefighter shirt. He had just joined, seemed interesting, and he invited me to check it out. They paid for me to get my EMT. Fell in love with healthcare. Fast forward quite a while, and I'm an nurse and precept students and new nurses, teaching them how to survive in the ER. I also do public outreach and injury prevention. And I love it. Glad I missed out on my class. I was walking to school and got distracted by a hedgehog that ran in a bush next to me. Then a big-ass tree branch fell in front of me. Would have crushed me if I didn't get distracted by a spiky little mouse scurrying in the bushes. I gave him a dead cricket the next day. He took it and ran off. Godspeed, Spiky Mouse. If my biological mom hadn't asked her parents to watch me for a couple hours and then left town, I wouldn't have had the incredible and privileged life that I was given through adoption. My younger half-brothers were raised by our biological mom and they are a total freaking mess. I'm more of a mom to them than their actual mom. And I would have been an absolute wreck also if she'd kept me. Instead, I was given an amazing private education, all the sports and musical adventures, and most important, a healthy, loving home with two parents who taught me that just because you share blood doesn't mean you love. And just because you didn't give birth to a child doesn't mean you can't be their parent. The wife and I were having dinner in Hawaii one night on vacation. As we were getting up to leave, I noticed she hadn't finished her beer. I told her she should finish the beer since we paid some ridiculous price for it. Fast forward 30 seconds and we leave the restaurant and are walking the 3 blocks back to the hotel. About 50 feet in front of us as we're walking down the sidewalk on the left side of the road. A car comes flying out of a side street from the right and crosses through the street, hops the sidewalk in front of us, and smashes into a wall. If she didn't finish her beer, we would have been smoked by the car and most likely squished between the car and the wall. We always finish our beer now. Pregnant cousin usually takes the bus at around 5:10 p.m. after work. She was about to hop inside the bus but she needed to pee really badly and the commute is about an hour long, so she decided to go to the restroom instead and just catch the next bus. That 5:10 bus ended up falling from a cliff. I was going out to grab pizza and a case of beer for me and my roommate, but he texted me that he had a stomach thing, so I walked to a restaurant and ordered dinner at the bar and met a girl there, and now we are married and have 2 kids because my roommate had diarrhea. At the end of 6th grade, my class took a field trip on a whale watch. That night, I saw a commercial for a documentary TV series on whales. Ever since that day, I wanted to grow up and protect whales from being hunted. Today I work in the military specializing in marine preservation. Received an incredibly high-paying job offer to run our biggest competitor's team. Told my boss, even though I loved my job, but it was more than double what I was making. Boss agreed to a reasonable raise, still not near the offer. I decided to stay because I genuinely loved my team, coworkers, and the money wasn't enough to leave that happy place. In exchange, I had to take up another account that meant a business trip I didn't have in the plans. Went on that trip and met my future husband. Couple of years later, we went on our honeymoon at a new resort in St. Lucia. Ran into someone I knew from work. Turns out the team that I'd been given the job offer for had made so much money that they had booked the same resort to celebrate. I sat there and went, wow, life is nuts. Would I've ended up there, either way. Got arrested for growing weed, moved back home. Got first job I could at IKEA. After working there for over a year, randomly decided to check Craigslist for jobs and saw an opening at a cafe and they were hiring right then, so instinctively went for it. The cafe was connected and owned by one of the most popular brew pubs, beer gardens in the area. They hired me to host there, quickly worked my way up the ranks to eventually bar manager. Met girl of my dreams, we are now married with 2 amazing kids. Opened 2 more restaurants with them and currently assistant director of operations, overseeing 3 restaurants at 3, 5, and 8 million a year in sales. Love my job, love my family, love my life. No idea what I'd be doing if I never got arrested, or never applied for the cafe job. Longer version, I was just out of high school and new in town with no job. I was living off what savings I had left and my account went below zero without me knowing. I was overdraft charged like 10 times and owed $300 plus. I went down to the bank, spoke with a teller, and she ended up being a lifesaver. She worked with me and got all the charges removed. On top of getting the charges removed, we got to talking about my situation and she said that her son worked at a local restaurant and she would help me get a job. She was a woman of her word and by the end of the week I was working full-time. Fast forward, I meet a cool dude who worked there, we became friends, I introduced him to my sister, they fell in love, got married and had 2 kids. His best friend came into town for the wedding and I introduced him to my roommate at the time, they fell in love, got married and had 2 babies. I also got my best friend a job at the restaurant where he met a girl working there, they fell in love, got married and had a kid. Right before I left, I got my roommate a job at the restaurant, where he met a customer, fell in love, got married and had a kid. As a bonus, my best friend, who I helped get the job, repaid the favor and got me a job at a different restaurant, where I met a girl, fell in love and got married. Went to a soccer match on a Thursday night in August 2010, after years of turning down invites from multiple groups of friends. But this time it was for someone's birthday and they gave me a ticket, so I said WTHOK. Fell in love with my local team. I had watched soccer in HS and college and of course the World Cup, but this was different. I rekindled friendships from years before through our mutual support of said team. Made new friends. Experienced new things because of friends and team. Drank more than I usually did. In January 2016 I got laid off from a job I had grown to hate after 8 years and a lot of rounds of layoffs. Just waiting for my number to get called. That March I was getting antsy and bored at home because I was trying to save money while still looking for work and decided to get off my couch and go to an off-season supporters group meetup, which I usually don't like to do because I'm not good at the social skills. And if I hadn't been unemployed I know I would not have gone, but that night I met the woman I instantly knew I was going to fall in love with. Got a new job, quit drinking, finally went on a date with her 6 months after meeting her. Figured out I hated the new job, quit that job. Moved to her city 35 minutes south in 2017 and have been working odd jobs part-time and doing gig economy stuff. I moved in 6 months later. We had a puppy magically fall into our lives within 3 days of just talking about maybe getting a dog. And it's my first dog ever and I am so happy about it. Got engaged, got married in December and I'm so happy about it. She kept telling me Reddit was actually good. I actually signed up. I saw this post. I replied, "Hi, we also just got a kitten." This happened 2 days ago. It was early in the morning and as I'm about to leave for work when my mom reminded me that I forgot my water bottle on the table while I was walking out. For whatever reason I decided to go leave my backpack in the car and then walk back into the house for the water bottle. Well, that took about maybe 10 seconds total. It started to rain heavily on my way to work and couldn't see very well, but I noticed the brake lights of the cars ahead stopping suddenly and some moving off onto the shoulder and decided to slow down and put the hazard lights on for the people behind to slow down. Well, turns out everyone was braking because a 4 to 5 car accident had just happened seconds before. All the cars were scattered across the highway, spread across the left-right shoulders, and another had hit the crash barrier. Basically a total bad mess. The drivers were still in their cars, I guess, processing what had just happened. After seeing it, I immediately started to think that if I hadn't gone back for the water bottle, there's a chance that I could have easily been in the accident, or at least even closer to it. It tripped me out for the rest of the day. When I was 18, I had a girlfriend, and her older brother owned a small company. He said to me, "You know, I think you'd be pretty good at this job. I'm 34 now, and have a legitimate career that I love because I dated a girl for a bit." Almost everything that has happened in my life for the past 8 years is a direct result of me literally flipping a coin to decide between two colleges. I play the sport I do, have the friends I do, am dating the person I am, and very nearly every other aspect of my life is because a nickel landed on heads. My dad raised me to be highly competitive. One day in junior high, I tried out for a play but didn't get in. Then I saw on the bottom of the cast list that they were looking for a student director to help out. I wasn't particularly interested, but another girl saw it at the same time as me and she did want it. I wanted to beat her. So we both applied and I got it. Long story short, I was a theater director for 15 years and have started directing films now, though now I prefer to write. All because of how competitive I am. I procrastinated one day in high school by watching a foreign musical on YouTube. I ended up trying to learn the lyrics and eventually the language. That led me to discovering the field of linguistics, which I'm now majoring in. I don't know what I'd be doing now had I actually started doing my homework that day instead.